26th of January 2023. You're welcome back to the channel. This is under the serious section. It's from forestry, and I'm going to deal, as promised, I'll do another video on this subject, following on the earlier one, which I think is 51p. And I have to tell you, I'm going to give you a lot of detail here, and I cannot be accountable for how it's used. If you go into court and sue for it or something, and your barrister gets it wrong, or it's wrong some way, I cannot take accountability. You have to put in that disclaimer when you talk about things like this, because I'm just trying to help, and I'm not prepared or paying insurance or taking a fee for this. This is all free, so I can't be held accountable for how this is used throughout the country. I'm sure you understand that. Now, what I do is I try my very best to make sure whatever I'm saying is accurate and correct. 51Q. Now, if you're planting more than 50 hectares, planning permission is required, the same as if you're building a shed or a dwelling house or anything else. There's no EIA as such needed, no environmental impact assessment needed. You just need planning permission. You could, if it's appealed, it could go to Board Planola, and there's the right to judicial review like any other planning permission. If you're changing from hardwood to softwood, an existing forest, you also need planning permission. You also need planning permission if you're changing from hardwood to softwood. In addition to that, for everything, there has to be a screening. There has to be a screening, and this involves special areas of conservation, if there's a special area of conservation within 15 kilometres, or if there is a heritage site within 15 kilometres. There has to be a screening, and then if it's considered that it's if it is one of those, there has to be an ecological assessment, and the body, is the Forestry Board, I think, does all this. The body doing it can also decide to do an ecological survey if they decide to do it. If none of them things exist, you probably wouldn't need an ecological survey as such. Now, the farmer gets his subsidies for 20 years. A non-farmer gets his subsidies for 15 years. 15 years. And it's tax-free. And this is for the maintenance, and it's a payment to encourage you. So whether it's hard or soft, the amount is 22,000 euros per hectare per annum. Sorry, I'm wrong. 22,000 euros per hectare in the total lifetime of it. In the total lifetime, 22,000 euros for the total lifetime, and it's quite a good subsidy. So you divide 22 by 20 for a farmer, and 22, it'd be less, I'd say, for a non-farmer. I'm not just too sure of that, but it's 22,000 for a farmer over the 22 years. Now, under Mr. Peter Sweetman, who's an environmental campaigner under the Habitats Directive, he took some case or other, and as a result, there has to be an ecological survey under 50 hectares, including over 50 hectares. He said that was too high. 50 hectares could do a lot of damage, so he has that in. However, there's a recent law that 1 hectare or under does not need anything. You don't need anything at all to plant less than 1 hectare. So I don't know, is it 1 hectare, but definitely if it's 1% below a hectare, you don't need any planning permission or anything, or ecological survey or anything else. Now, they like to have a good lot of land planted, so if it's more than 12 hectares, there's an extra 5% of a grant. And the maintenance grant is 100% tax-free. Maintenance grant is 100% tax-free. With the annual premium. It's an annual premium, they call it, right? So all I'm saying here, if it's above 12 hectares, you get 5% extra. But if it's under 50 hectares, you still need the ecological survey. That's because of the Sweetman case. But in any event, you'd have to, if it's within those special areas of conservation and the habitats areas, you'd have to do it as well. Is that understood? Now, this is as best as I understand it. So, so again, we'll just go through it here again. A screening is needed. Once you get planning permission, you have to screen. If it's within 15 kilometres of a special area of conservation or a heritage site, there has to be an ecological survey carried out, and that's done not by the farmer's expense, it's done by the state. So that has to be done. Again, I wouldn't worry about it. Why worry about it if you don't have to pay for it? And the grant situation is 20 years it lasts for a farmer, and a non-farmer 15 years, okay? And that grant is tax-free. I won't answer if that, I don't think there's any maintenance. That's maintenance, that includes maintenance, all of it and all of that, I think. And I'll clarify that if I'm wrong here under. It's tax-free. Whether it's hard or softwood, it's €22,000 per hectare over the lifetime of the project. So that'll be for a farmer, 22 divided by 20. So you can figure out how much that is a year. It's quite substantial of a grant coming in, okay? 22,000 for the lifetime of the project. I won't answer you again if you're a non-farmer and it's a 15-year one, how much it is. There's little bits of things that, you know, when you study and you're before the camera, it's easy not to just get it right. So I want to be careful not to confuse. And also, just I can't be held accountable for this. This is the best I can do, right? I have a reason for saying all this. Now, so the requirement for the eco survey under 50 hectares is a result of Mr. Peter Friedman's case. I'm not commenting that. That's just the way. I wouldn't worry about it. And if it's above 12 hectares, the planting, you get an extra 5% in your subsidies. So the 100% maintenance grant, they call it, that's the annual premium you get. Okay. Now, as I said, there is a recent exemption. You can plant up to 1 hectare without any official thing at all. That's just the law, the way it is. And so without, free from permits. Now, here's the thing. They're now after doing a deal with Gresham, a big investment company, a special purpose acquisition vehicle or company, designed to reap the taxpayers' money for this out of Irish land. And this is what is an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace, okay? Now, what's more, if Gresham or anyone can have a herd number, if you have a herd number, even though you're not farming it, you might only put in a little bit of special crop, half an acre of eco crops or bird feed. You can draw the single farm payment. These people are going to draw the single farm payment, and that is an outrageous abuse. Okay, simply get a herd number. That's all. Now, I won't answer you what's the story with tillage. They could keep a few goats or a few sheep on it, and they get the single farm payment, provided it's already on it. So if they buy the land and it has single farm payment entitlements, so long as they keep some little thing going and keep the herd number or require a herd number, they can continue to draw the single farm payment, the same as any other farmer. So they can draw the single farm payment, which is an absolute disgrace, folks, an absolute disgrace. Now, you could get a farmer with a bit of land going up beside him, and he's caught with the nitrates directive. He has too much nitrates. He would need an extra bit of land to get out of the continual reduction of the nitrates on the farm. He'd need an extra bit of land. He might want to buy it. He might have to buy it. If he cannot buy it, and if he's put out of it by this crowd, by Gresham, and of course there'll be others coming, because that's the idea, a state-owned company using state-owned money, state-owned jobs, pensionable jobs, to put the farmer out, put the landowner out. So he would have to cull his cattle or reduce the stock or do something. So just to explain that again, if you're above the limit of the nitrates, the only way you can get over it is to acquire more land, and this could block a person from dairy farming or indeed ordinary farming or whatever else. Okay, you get that? So may need to cull cows. So one of the indirect effects of Kilshe's decision to use our taxpayers' money to join up with a British finance company is to reduce the herd. And that's what you get when you have the Dubs TDs running the country and you have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael refusing to do anything about it. Now, so I say that herd number thing is an abuse. They shouldn't be allowed to do that, but how are they going to be stopped? And Gresham can get more money from a strategic investment fund. There's a strategic investment fund. Now, an ordinary small farmer would have an awful job getting that, but these big companies have no problem getting it. So they'll only get another lump of money in there from the EU. So their planting costs can be assisted by the state, by EU money, which is our money. Talk about an abuse. Talk about a sellout of our people by our politicians, which were elected by us, and there's no sign of any other party, Sinn Féin or anybody else. I mean, it's too late now to reverse this. Where was the TDs? Why didn't they do it? Why didn't Mick Fitzmaurice shout about it? Why didn't independent TDs shout about it? Why didn't Niamh Smith and Cavan, Darren O'Rourke, that other McGurk fella, Brendan Smith, Niamh Smith, Heather Humphreys, not a word. Absolutely not a word. They drafted up the Forestry Act and the whole thing so as that this can happen. Now, just to make it clear, it's bad enough to plant Kilsh's land. They had the job of doing it. Why aren't they doing it? And they used to do it for years. That's bad enough. What's happening now is they're going to go out now and buy the land of the country. And it takes good land to grow good trees. So don't make the mistake of thinking this will be marginal land. It takes good land, and the better the land, the better the trees will grow. I'm not against growing trees. I'm saying, how come we cannot have an indigenous industry? Why are we selling all this out to big finance houses? It's because of corruption and the stupidity of your neighbours. When they go into the ballot box, I never stop explaining that. I'm not really into politics. You're better if you put in a half-mad lunatic asylum escapee with one eye and one leg and a nutcase. At least you might be able to reason with them on these things. You'll not reason with the established parties, any of them. Now, when it comes to cutting the crop at the end, it's tax-free. It's tax-free. Okay? So you sell your crop, no tax. Complete no tax. Right? That's what they're trying to do. Now, why is there such a need to do this? Why is there such a craze to get this planting done? Well, they're all for the green agenda and all that. But the fact is that under the 1946 Forestry Act, which was amended in 2014, the government had an opportunity to change the law that after the 20 years is up, you could go back to farming. So as I said before, a man might be a young man, he might be in America, he might be left a farm, he might decide plant the whole thing, and when he has his 25 years done in America, come home, maybe with his family, and start farming again, going back to cattle, sheep, or whatever that he wants to do. But this law prevents him. And who made this law? Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, Democratic Left, the Greens, and the whole lot. They could have changed this in 2014 and allowed you to go back to agriculture if you wanted to. Because that's what's stopping landowners from taking up the forestry thing, because they don't want to put the land into forestry forever, irredeemable. We must try and change that. We must try and change it. If it was changed in the morning, it wouldn't even get a headline in the paper, and that would have such a great effect on allowing people to plant their land. Where do you think Gresham will be in 20 years? What are they going to do? They'll find ways around it. So why is that? So my reason for it is, look to your neighbours who vote for these people, and that's it. They make the law. It's not the situation. I don't like to get talking politics in the pub, you know. That's where it happens. They can open up forestry for everyone, and Irish people and everything, local lads and everything else. They could rent the land of somebody that can do all this. If you didn't have to replant after the 20 years or 15 is up, whichever it is, after the crop is taken, you have to replant, and you get no subsidy. You don't get 10 cent, right? Okay, there's 2 euros. Where's that camera? Here. There's 2 euros. You don't get that to plant again. You get nothing. So what is Gresham going to do after the 20 years? Now this contract cannot be stopped. It's legally binding. I did a video on contracts. It can't be stopped. Nothing can be done, only tax them. Or bring in some type of law on the transfer of land. Used to be a time you couldn't sell land, you couldn't divide it without the permission of the Land Commission, Section 45 of the Land Act. So there would be maybe ways of doing it, but it's highly debatable. If they enter into a contract in the existing law, you can change the law to put them out. Highly debatable. That's a big question. It's the same as that thing in the arm. I mean, they changed the law to destroy people's livelihood. And what can people sue for it? To give them a few pennies. The whole business gone. It's highly debatable. So, next election, these politicians will be up and our neighbours and people will vote for them for the return of the landlord system. I have told you, I have made the point, and I know they won't do it because I'm just doing it for the wind and the energy. I can't do everything. I have a farm to run and my time is valuable. But the SEA directive requires an SEA for forestry. It's written into it. They may try to claim that the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment for forestry, is a different type of vehicle. It's not an EIA, they will try and say. It's a license thing. But it doesn't really matter. If that goes to the European Court of Justice, you cannot cut out the SEA directive at local level. It's a simple matter, folks. Anyone that wants to challenge it, anyone that wants the money, anyone that has the money, you could get some person who feels strong about this, you could get some campaigner and challenge the whole thing. The first time they apply for planning permission to the county council, hit them with a judicial review, there's no SEA. And you'll have some fun. You'll have some fun with that. I'm telling you, you'll have some fun. But there is the answer. Kilcha did not have the right to sign the contract without making sure that the law on the Strategic Environmental Assessment Directive is complied with. That's the hard, fast fact to it. I, with a few others, am forcing this down their throats with the wind energy, and maybe I would sometime take it on for the forestry, but for now, that's the answer to this. I wouldn't fear the SCA. It'll hold them up a couple of years, and all of this could be trashed out in that process. It's probable that it would pass the SCA process, but they don't know how to do it. They haven't a monkey's notion, and we could tie them up in knots with judicial reviews for years, and they know that. So I might put in an access information on the environment request on forestry as well, and they'll write back to say it doesn't apply, but I'll at least have evidence that it's not there. And I'm doing it for wind energy as well. Folks, I hope I've given you a good deal of detail. I emphasize again, I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not paid by anybody, and I can't take accountability if it goes bottom up. But that is the situation with forestry. It is at least a local person or a local crowd have some input in, and they live here and they're explaining that this is paying the pension funds of people in Chicago, in Melbourne, in Germany, out of our resource, our land, our taxes, and EU taxes. That's what our government is determined to do to the Irish people. And all I can do is tell you this and ask you to send this round, please, to anyone that might look at it. It's amazing who looks at my videos, and give me a thumbs up for effort or a thumbs down. And I think I'll probably leave that. If there's any little correction, I'll put it underneath in a link to it. The SEA directive, I give it on the earlier video. I showed it there, 201/42 EC, Article 3.2. It's the same as if you have a pub, you need a license. You cannot do anything for any of these industries, energy, forestry, fisheries, or anything else without going through the proper process with public participation. That's the answer to block these hoodlums. That's the answer. Whether it's done or not, I can't tell you. That's it. if anyone wants to contact me, there's my, no, I haven't it there. Val Martin, Kingsford, County Cavan. You drop a note to me and I can talk to you. I won't give you my email address or my telephone number because it's abused by trolls and abusive people who don't like what I'm doing. Bye. See you back for something else and good luck. Thank you.